Hey everyone, it's Dr. Ramani. Welcome back to this YouTube channel on narcissism and narcissistic relationships and healing from them. So, as a holiday riff, I was thinking about this today. Do you think the Grinch was a narcissist? The thing that made me think about this was I was driving down the street and people had a giant Grinch in front of their house, and I was stuck. I think I was stuck at a stop sign or a light, and I looked at that giant Grinch and I thought about that Grinch and I thought, is he narcissistic? Drop it in the comments. What do you think? Is the Grinch a narcissist? So let me give you my answer. I actually think he's not. Now, for anyone watching this who's not familiar with the story of the Grinch, I do know we have folks who watch in different countries. The Grinch is a Dr. Seuss kind of a Christmas story. And the Grinch is a sort of monstery guy who lives high up in a mountain with his little dog, and he hates Christmas. And the town at the bottom of the mountain, he lives like in a cave. The town at the bottom of the mountain is called Whoville, and the Who people, the Whovillians, are very agreeable and very empathic, and just sort of this sweet, loving town of people who love Christmas. Well, the Grinch takes it upon himself that he is going to ruin Christmas. And one of the premises of the Grinch show, of the Grinch Who Stole Christmas, is that his heart is 1/3 smaller than any normal person's. I was like, ooh, that feels narcissistic-y. But bear with me on why I think the Grinch is not a narcissist. So you're kind of brought into this, like, Grinch is kind of mean and he has a small heart and he wants to ruin the agreeable Who people's Christmas. And so I hate how he treats his dogs. When I was a very small child, I watched this and I actually got really upset because he ties a heavy horn on the little dog's head and the dog can't manage it, and he's really mean to his dog. Now, the being mean to his pet part definitely weighs heavily into the yes column on narcissism, but again, bear with me. So the Grinch goes down, he steals everyone's Christmas presents, theft, definitely a narcissistic act, because he doesn't need what he's stealing, puts it all in these bags. And then he packs up his sleigh, and he's going to have his tiny little dog who cannot manage to pull this sleigh, who's supposed to take the sled back up the hill. Well, the penny drop moment in the Grinch is when a very, very little girl, sweet, cute little girl named Cindy Lou Who, who's like baby, she comes out because she came out to get like a glass of water or something, and she sees the Grinch. And he is sort of he's kind of, his heart is starting to melt. Sort of two penny drop moments. That's the first penny drop moment. And his heart sort of melts for her, but he kind of tells her a lie and gives her her little glass of water and puts her back to bed. And he's like, I need to get out of here. But what ends up happening is the Grinch is torturing his dog and taking it up, making the dog take the heavy sleigh up. But then what the Grinch sees is he sees, despite him taking all their food and their lights and their decorations and their Christmas trees and their gifts, the next morning, on Christmas morning, all of the citizens of Whoville hold hands, stand in the town square, and sing. The Grinch witnesses this, and then his heart expands to 3 times larger than a normal heart, and he is filled with empathy. He loads the poor, long-suffering dog back in the sleigh, takes it back down the hill. Again, I do not like how the dog was treated in this. There's a one thing I'll always have a ding against the Grinch. Goes back down and decides to give everything back, and then though they sort of celebrate him, right? So the Grinch has come around. Now here's the thing with the Grinch. I don't think he's narcissistic because he makes such a turnaround, right? He seems genuinely wedded in gratitude to the Who people for showing him empathy and kindness and agreeableness, and that action actually made his heart grow. To me, the Grinch story has a little bit of a Beauty and the Beast vibe, but not really. Remember, Beauty does all this dancing and appeasing the Beast to win him over, and then he falls in love with her. In this case, the Who people were just living their lives and being empathic, and the Grinch witnessed it, and it transformed him. That's why I'm sort of leaning into the not so narcissistic that the Grinch is not narcissistic. We wouldn't see that kind of 180 turnaround on a narcissistic person. My guess is that the Grinch had a history of trauma. And the trauma is what led him to live alone in the cave and not be nice to his dog and have a lot of contempt for Christmas. That's my argument. The Grinch probably had post-traumatic stress. And so when they embrace the Grinch like that, the Grinch then is very devoted to like being there. He's very sweet to the little Cindy Lou Who. The dog is no longer being mistreated and gets a big steak to eat, but still had to have a heavy bone on its head, which I really struggled with because I thought that was hard for the dog. And we assumed then that the Grinch was going to sort of be absorbed into the citizenry of Whoville, or maybe he'd stay in his cave, but he wouldn't be upset about Christmas anymore. So I think that one thing that the Grinch teaches us, though, is that there are certain presentations. Trauma is a great example, that some of the presentation of trauma can have some parallels with narcissism. That said, the trauma becomes a significant point of entry for treatment. Trauma-informed therapy, because a person with post-trauma may do things like be very detached, be angry, be withdrawn, irritable, and also may lash out and have dysregulated anger. Those are not unusual presentations in trauma. But the trauma then becomes a point of entry. And with trauma-informed therapy, including EMDR, somatic therapies, cognitive behavioral work around the trauma, what we can slowly see, and especially if there's group work there, if the Grinch had been in a trauma group, that would have been great too. You could see sort of a coming around, and then you can see some significant change. We know that personality is very unlikely to change. Trauma is one of the things that can change personality, even in adulthood. So then the Grinch, just witnessing something probably wouldn't do that for someone, but we'll give the Dr. Seuss moment or whatever, the cartoon moment, its moment. But that's why I argue for more of a post-traumatic presentation, more amenability to change, and then what we never get to find out was the Grinch's change sustained. If the Grinch remained loving with a bigger heart and sort of a productive member of the Who community, definitely not narcissistic. I wish I had a little more data to see how he did past Christmas Day. Obviously, if he reverts back, I could be sold the narcissism argument and hypothesis as well, too. And I hope he becomes a better pet owner, because I just cannot get behind the treatment of the dog. That I don't know that I'll ever get past with the Grinch. But I do, my belief, my diagnostic hypothesis, though I've never directly worked with the Grinch, is that the Grinch had a history of trauma. The manifestation of that trauma culminated in all of the stealing of Christmas gifts. But then, through the intervention of witnessing the empathy within the community, he had a turnaround. Again, not consistent with narcissism. Would love to hear your thoughts. Happy Christmas, and thanks again.